You know that moment when you're trying to keep one tab open in your brain and another one keeps loading over it? I had that with Yasuke. You start with this small image, an African man standing in Oda Nobunaga's world in 16th century Japan. And your first reaction is basically, wait, what? Not because the story is polished, because it's so strange it almost refuses to sit still. The strange part is that it gets global before we even get to the famous name. Yasuke shows up in Japan around 1579 with the Jesuit missionary Alessandro Valignano, who was on an inspection tour through Asia. So Yasuke isn't just a guy who appeared in Japan. He arrived through the Portuguese Indian Ocean Network and the Jesuit mission system. Not one place, not one route, a whole connected world. People love to talk about globalization like it started with the internet. It didn't. The 1500s were already doing a very expensive, very dangerous version of it. And Yasuke makes that feel real because he didn't arrive as an abstraction. He arrived as a person you could see. One source says Nobunaga initially thought his skin was ink and ordered him washed, just to make sure. That sounds almost comic for a second, until you actually sit with it. This is a ruler who is used to controlling rooms, and suddenly one man's presence changes what people expect. Nobunaga was known for being open to foreign people and foreign things, which probably helped. Yasuke was described as unusually tall, around 6 shaku, roughly 180 centimeters. In a court where standing out could be dangerous, that kind of height mattered. He was noticed. That is the key point for me. Not was he cool, he was. Not was he unusual, obviously. The real question is what happens when someone like that crosses into a rigid hierarchy and doesn't get flattened immediately. And the answer is, he got close enough to power that his name survived at all. Maybe that sounds small. It isn't. Most people in the 1500s disappeared without leaving a sentence behind. Yasuke left a trace. Now the legend starts doing what legends do. People often call Yasuke the first black samurai, and that phrase sticks because it gives the story a clean shape. But the historical record is not that generous. Contemporary sources describe him more like an attendant or bodyguard in Nobunaga's entourage, not with the tidy official samurai label people want to give him now. Later Edo period retellings add a stipend, a house, and a ceremonial sword. Those details may be true, or they may be the kind stories collect as they get retold. The earliest sources simply don't preserve that much. History didn't give us the paperwork. Rude, honestly. And that missing detail matters. In Sengoku Japan, samurai wasn't just a vibes-based identity. It meant service, status, and a place inside a clan hierarchy. Formal recognition usually meant tangible things: land, stipends, standing. If later texts give Yasuke those pieces, that's interesting. But if the earlier sources don't, we have to slow down and say so. The careful answer is better than the flashy one. Have you ever noticed how that's true in daily life too? A story shows up already polished, and you forget to ask who did the polishing. What makes the evidence sharp is how narrow it is. Yasuke's life in Japan is documented in a tiny window, roughly 1579 to 1582, and mainly in a handful of sources: the chronicle Shincho Koki and the diary of Matsudera Ietada, plus later summaries and retellings. That's it. No long autobiography, no tidy archive labeled Yasuke, just fragments. So when people argue about where he was born, the debate has to work with guesses. Some scholars point to the Dinka people in what is now South Sudan. Others suggest a region near modern Mozambique. Both ideas exist because the evidence is so thin that historians are reconstructing from second-hand descriptions and later accounts. That's not a failure. It's just what honest history looks like when the archive is stingy. And if you zoom out from Yasuke himself, the interesting thing is that he wasn't the only African person in Japan. Historians have suggested there were several hundred Africans in 16th century Japan, working as interpreters, soldiers, entertainers, and more. That changes the frame. Yasuke wasn't a singular outlier in an otherwise sealed society. He was extraordinary, yes, but he also belonged to a larger, messier movement of people moving through the Portuguese and Jesuit world. That's a much richer story than mysterious outsider appears. Then comes the part everybody remembers, because it has betrayal baked in. In June 1582, Akechi Mitsuhide attacked Nobunaga at Honnoji in Kyoto. Nobunaga was forced to commit seppuku. Yasuke was there. He reportedly fought alongside Nobunaga's son, Nobutada, before being captured and sent back to the Jesuits, because Mitsuhide apparently judged him not to be a true samurai. And then the record stops there. That silence is the ending, and it's a powerful one, not because it solves the mystery, but because it leaves you with the real shape of the problem. People get remembered in ways that are half evidence, half imagination. Yasuke became a symbol of global contact, of limited but real mobility inside a rigid system, and of how easily a person can be turned into a legend when the surviving records are thin. If you hear his story and feel the urge to ask, what did the source actually say? Good! That's the whole skill. I keep coming back to that first image of an African man standing beside Oda Nobunaga because it still does something to the mind. The next time a story sounds too clean, ask what was there first, before the later edits. That's usually where the real person is hiding.